Another legacy that's not so great to have is when you're his teammate on the opposite side of the garage and your name is Sergio Perez. At the moment, not saying that he's not going to have a phenomenal legacy when he looks back on his F1 career, but as it stands right now, guys, back-to-back tough races for Sergio Perez. Laurence, what was it like on the ground in Japan watching that day unfold for him?
Yeah, it's not nice actually to see a driver who we've seen achieve great results in his career, often for smaller teams, and then just to go through, what happened in Japan, and really the die was cast in qualifying when he qualified fifth, put himself in that midfield. Suzuka it's a funny grid because it's on quite a slope downhill, so it's quite hard to get the start absolutely spot on, and then it's narrow as well. As soon as you get past the pit lane exit, it all narrows down into a very fast first corner. And he had Ferraris on one side who were pushing him across, and he had Lewis Hamilton on the other who ended up on the grass. And he actually came out worse. He lost a bit of front wing. So as soon as that happened, he was in trouble. He was always going backwards on a circuit where, we do see exciting racing, I feel, but it's not easy to overtake, even in a Red Bull. So from that point onwards, it felt like he was just pushing way over the edge, trying to make up for what had gone wrong on Saturday and then Sunday. But this is, it just feels like the same each weekend for Perez at the moment. The guy, whether he can't catch a break, that's probably a kind way to look at it. But I think a much more realistic way to look at it is that he is just massively underperforming. That Red Bull was capable of taking pole position by half a second to Oscar Piastri. In the first sector alone, Max Verstappen was 2 tenths up on Piastri. If you look at the gaps to some of the other teams, like the Mercedes and the Ferraris, in that first sector, it was about 6 tenths to 7 tenths to 8 tenths. That's how quick that was. That would be a massive margin around a single lap at any racetrack. But Perez couldn't find it. He could not hook together those early corners of the lap, or really any of the corners, in the way that Verstappen did. And I just don't really know where he goes from here, other than just trying to see out the season and starting again afresh in 2024. But then he's got the pressure of a contract year and the rest of it. So yeah, I don't know where he goes, but at the moment it seems to be getting worse rather than better.
I would agree, and I don't know, Nate, if it's the pressure that's mounting. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton is clicking at his heels right now for P2 in the drivers' championship. I don't know if it's pressing too much because of who your teammate is, or is it just a confidence issue because you've put together, poor qualifying results, poor results on Sundays, a combination of all of the above? Like, can you pinpoint what it is at this point?
A combination of all the above would be a fair way to look at it. And I think often those things go hand in hand. With Perez, clearly the confidence is lacking. I mean, you can see that, when Laurence and I go to the media sessions with Perez you don't find the Perez that we used to talk to, when it was Racing Point or Force India. He's a lot more reserved. I don't think he really enjoys talking to the media in the way that he used to, because the tone of the questions is very similar. It's, why are you struggling? Max is winning. Yeah. It's very easy to be on the back foot and be defensive about that if you're in that situation. And I mean, just on the point of confidence, often what you find when the driver is lacking confidence is they then start to overdrive. They overcompensate. They push too hard. Laurence was spot on with that about the car. Perez probably could have waited for the race to come to him. We've seen one of the great things about Max, and I think that this trait of his actually gets overlooked because he's out in front so much. But Max has become a very, very patient driver. He knows the car he has underneath him. And we saw it in Monza. He did have a fight with Sainz, but he waited for the situation to come to him, eventually got past Sainz, and then disappeared into the distance. With Perez, I think there's an urgency to prove what he can do. And that tangle with Magnussen, Perez in that Red Bull there's no reason he should be in that situation with a car that is probably 8th, 9th, or 10th fastest, given the race that you're at. There's absolutely no reason he should be in that situation. I thought it was actually, I wonder how much of it was obviously 48 hours before the race. We found out that Ricciardo and Tsunoda were going to be driving for AlphaTauri, and we've known that for a long time. But the confirmation that those two guys are staying there, obviously, it ends any speculation that Red Bull might at the last minute pull the rug from under Perez's feet and say, actually, we're going to put Ricciardo in there, which I don't really think has been a serious threat, but the speculation has been there and the prospect has been there, and that must have weighed on his mind a bit. I don't know whether them taking that away kind of almost put him into a place where it's now I just need to perform, and actually the weight of that expectation is just so great that we saw the race, we saw him have the race that he did have. And the weird thing with Perez is it felt like, either side of the summer break, it was like, okay, it feels like he's getting on top of whatever these issues are. And then suddenly it just has fallen apart again. So I'm not sure what is going on with Perez at the moment. But if you look at the grid, there's a few drivers where you're like, these guys need an off season right now just to get away. I'd put Stroll in there, I'd put Sargent in there, and I'd put Perez in there as well. Those three guys, when you look at how they're performing, but Sargent's a rookie. Stroll's up against Fernando Alonso, and he's in his own situation. But Perez is in the best car on the grid. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things going on there, and the problem he's got as well is that Max just keeps getting better and better. Max is just we see no signs of mistakes from him. Even Singapore when Red Bull were down, Max still came through the field quite well at the end. I think he was fifth there. So even when Max isn't having great weekends, he's still getting the most out of the car. So it must be just devastating from a confidence point of view. And I agree with Laurence. It's quite painful to watch because you don't want to see drivers in that situation, especially when you know how good Perez has been previously in Formula One.
You're not allowed to jump ahead on the rundown. I've got the doghouse listed, and you just basically told us
it's a
exactly
teaser.
It was a teaser, yes.
Doghouse teaser. Apologies. Sorry, Casey. I'll let you. You're a much better host than I'd ever be, so I'll never do that again.
We'll get there. So follow along with us. But a couple more questions here. Certainly a forgettable weekend for Sergio Perez.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.